Well, a very good morning, good afternoon to you, wherever you might be in the world. Welcome to the channel. If you're new to the channel, as always, you will learn. I go down a tangent. I quite often distract myself and I get caught up in whatever is going on. I also do have a dog. The returning visitors are going to know this. I've got a little boy called Toby. He likes to play with his ball. Actually, more than the ball. He's got bouncy toys and sometimes he runs in and out. I've got wooden floorboards, so just be aware. If he gets really loud, I'll stop, but hopefully he's going to be content today and not interrupt me. But having said that, I have had a number of challenges this morning, so he's a little bit neglected. And when I say challenges, I'm talking about technology. I lost capacity to use my microphone, so it has been the biggest pain in the backside you've ever heard about today. But anyway, instead of whinging on about that, I'm going to jump straight into it and say thank you very much for visiting the channel today. Thank you for being part of my journey. Today we're going to talk about Unakite. Now, Unakite is a really interesting crystal. Obviously, we're going to get more into it. And because I'm doing these videos now, I'm going through the remnants of my collection, shall we say, because I gave a lot of away over the years. I've lost some as well, and I just didn't replace them because my lifestyle didn't give me capacity really to be able to have this expanded collection that I used to have in the past. So anyway, where I'm going is I actually found I had quite a few bits of it, of the tumbled stone variety, which is really interesting to me because I purchased them years ago now. So anyway, of course, as I find these crystals, I do recharge them and energize them and attempt to re-experience them. Now, just a tip before I go in and talk about it today. If you are new to the channel, you might not be aware that when I put the content up as to the metaphysical properties, some of it's stuff that I personally have experienced. Some of it is stuff that I've been told by other people through mixing and socializing with people that are into crystals, and others of it just because I like to put together comprehensive information. I do a bit of research on the crystals before I make the videos, so some of it might just be stuff that you'll find online. But either way, I invite and encourage anybody to put up here in the comments their own experiences of using crystals. Now, just a reminder, when we talk about images, and this becomes the hardship when we're actually buying, is it's very difficult to actually get a photograph of a crystal and have it show its colours effectively. So this one actually doesn't look very pretty to me. I can see and believe it to be a genuine Unakite sphere, but at the same time, the colorings of my Unakite are different, and I'm going to try and show you it as we go through and explain it. And the best way to actually really fully understand a crystal is, of course, to go into a property, a retailer's or a wholesaler's or whatever, and actually take a look at the real McCoy, and then you'll know what you're looking for when you go online, if you're looking online. I forgot to mention, I was just about to crack on to the next slide, but realistically what we're looking at is a crystal that is actually green, primarily green, with pinkish to, I would even say, a bit of a terracotta or a salmon hue with these pink bits inside of the green. Sounds lovely. My description, never mind, that's who I am as well. But anyway, yes, it's depending on the crystal that you're looking at, because they all will vary somewhat too, you're going to see a crystal that's got pinkish terracotta type mottling on it, but it's primarily a green crystal, more of an olive green actually, but we'll talk about that a little bit more on the next slides. And as always, I'm very transparent about my limitations with Astro. I've got a certain amount of experience in as far as delivering readings and consults to people and understanding more about how the star signs work on a personal level. But astrology is a very complex subject, If you've ever had an Astro report done, you've got all those houses, and when we say that it's not one size fits all for anybody, this is truly the case when it comes to the Zodiac. And so when it comes to linking Zodiacs to crystals, I'm not particularly clear on why there's recommendations there. To some extent, I can see why Unakite might be beneficial to people that are the water signs. That's the Cancer and the Scorpio. But as for the fire sign, Yeah, look, I can see why it might be linked with Aries too. Not so sure about the Capricorn though, but we'll have a look at the metaphysical properties and establish that as we go through. But just a reminder for now though, it doesn't matter what star sign you are. If you feel drawn to a crystal, be it Unakite or any other crystal, you're being drawn to it for a reason, because it's got these specific properties that will assist you to raise your vibration or to get through barriers, and even to support you, because it's a very comforting crystal. And when we look at the metaphysical overview, we're going to go into it in more detail as per each slide. It is, oh my goodness me, it has some massive links or properties associated with it energy wise. It is considered to be a stone of reflection and practicality. I would actually put in there also empowering, because when we're able to reflect on our limitations, we're able to take the steps that empower us in our day-to-day life. And I can actually see, when I look at the overview, why it would have been that I've been drawn to it historically. And that is because I've had a number of new beginnings. I probably bought my tumbles, let's say back in about 2009, 2010. So I've had them for a long time. And during that time frame, I've moved house, I've gone to university, I've finished my degree, all of these different new beginnings. There's been changes within the family, all of this kind of stuff. So anyway, it's a very practical stone, and it supports a person's goals, shall we say, to seek spiritual enlightenment. This is a lot of the time an example of this, and I'll draw upon myself. Before I became more aware, because my life has been so rife with challenges, and as I learned about the divine plan, and it was first put to me, because I've got a sense of humour, I used to say back in the day, did I think I was 10 foot tall and bulletproof when I actually agreed to my divine plan? Because once you actually become aware of that, you can see where your freedom of choice has come in, and where there has been a predestined aspect of your life that has come in. You become more aware of it anyway. So the bottom line is, when we're talking about new beginnings and change and rebirths and that kind of stuff, we're talking about highly emotional times that are often fraught with anxiety, and where, if we're not happy about the changes, we might resist. It could be, if it's work related or family related, we're attached to the outcomes, and the writing's on the wall, your job's about to end, it looks like the business is going to go bust, and people start to panic. Am I going to find the right job, all of this stuff. So that is where we talk about the rebirth, and there's got to be an ending before a birth can occur. And it is the endings that create a lot of problems for us humans as we walk our path. So from an overview perspective, what you can see here, that it's a calming and it's a soothing crystal, and it works across all layers, whether it's your aura or your chakras, and it helps to, I guess, clear the doubts, the negative mind speak that we get. And it also, when we talk about blockages and new beginnings, we're talking about resistance to change. So it's going to help to open a person up to those changes, to release the fears, that old saying of feel the fear and do it anyway. And of course, it's got detoxification properties to it, because as we purify the mind, the body, the spirit, it all is hand in hand. This is why we say mind, body, and spirit. So of course, if we're purifying the mind and the energy around us, that is going to have a follow-on effect to the physical. And I must say here, theoretically, of course, because we cannot make claims. So before we talk about the mineral information, just that old disclaimer here as well. I am not a geologist, I'm not a gemologist, I'm not a lapidurist, if that's how you pronounce the word. I am simply somebody who appreciates the beauty and the energy of crystals. And the image that I've got here comes from a website called Geology Science. And what I'm going to say here, this could actually go, or I could have placed this on the buying tips page, okay? Because what I believe we're looking at here, and actually this is a fairly good image of the colours that I was talking about. It's hard to see on the other sphere that we were looking at. What we see here is that the colours are jumping out a bit more, And the reason why they're jumping out, I believe, is because the crystals appear to be wet to me. Now, apparently sometimes they will put oil on them to make them shine a bit and to make those colours jump out. But certainly within the context of this video, that's actually a good image. You can see that while these crystals are Unakite in the rough, you can see that coloration that I was talking about. Now, as far as the mineral stuff goes, well, I said I'm no expert for a reason. You know, I really, actually, I'm getting to the point where I look at these terms and my brain just fries. So it's a metamorphic rock. Do your own Googles, okay? It's a type of granitic rock, is what I've got, that features. This isn't my words. It's it might have even been AI, to be honest. It's a granitic rock that features mottled patterns of green epidote, and it has white to grey quartz in it, and the feldspar is the pink stuff. Occasionally it will get black veining, like what you see in this image here. And the pink part is where the granite has changed from its natural colouring into feldspar. That's what I read. A geologist, if you're watching this, feel free to add your comments. But yeah, so the pieces that I've got are definitely Unakite. They're definitely tumbled, but they definitely also have all these attributes that we're talking about here. What else can I say about it? Just that apparently it was first discovered in the, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Unakite Mountains in the southeastern United States. That's where it was first discovered. So what else have I got here? The epidote is the green part, like I said before. That's a silicate, apparently. As I said before, look, the bluish, I'm looking at my notes if you can't tell. Just the proportion of the quartz, the epidote, and the feldspar, that's going to vary. And this is why sometimes if you're looking, and you can see it here in this image as well, some of these stones have got more green. You can see there's a stone on the left. It's more green. It's got a little bit of black and white on it, and it doesn't have much pink. Now, technically speaking, if they were going to be selling it as epidote, as Unakite, the fact that there's no pink on it, apparently that means that it's epidote. It's not Unakite, okay? Not technically speaking. I would still buy it, by the way, if it resonated with me. Now, the other thing is too that the really high grade pieces are very popular with the collectors, and as far as rarity goes, it's really not a rare crystal. It's quite abundant, but the ones that we see more often than not are actually what are considered to be the lower grade ones that are not as attractive to collectors, and that's fine by us people that are into metaphysical energy and that kind of thing, because that means we can buy it at a reasonable price. I wouldn't say cheap, because it really depends on who you're buying it from, but when we look at, okay, so rarity, it's not particularly rare. When we look at where it's sourced, where can you get it from? Obviously, the United States, there's a number of different states there that it's sourced in. They've got mines, obviously. South Africa's got deposits. Where else? Brazil has some deposits as well, only in the areas where there's metamorphic activity. And if I'm correct me on this, I think metamorphosis has got to do with volcanic, hasn't it? Or old volcanoes? Yeah, because Australia, we don't have any live volcanoes, but we've got evidence that we had them in the past. China also has apparently some deposits in their terrains as well. And you know, I mean, there's going to be far more than what I've mentioned here. So I'll talk about that in the buying tips. I was just going to say, ask the questions, and I will actually revisit this. When you're buying your Unakite or any crystal, try and establish what location that they have actually sourced the crystal from. And speaking of buying tips, obviously you can find most crystals in the rough. Most crystals will be tumbled. Oh, I forgot to mention the hardness of Unakite. And that's actually important, because the hardness of a crystal is going to determine whether or not it's suitable for things like carving and what we see here as obelisks. So we did see there that it's about 6, I think, on the mineral hardness scale. So it actually is suitable for some carving. But when you look at the egg here, if you look closely at this, and I'm not sure it's going to show up on your screen, you're going to see that there is a black line, more than one actually, that is not veining. It actually looks like a flaw. It's a bit of a crack in the actual crystal. You can tell the difference after a while as to what is a crack and what is veining. Now, the point being that I would still buy this egg because I'm actually somebody that values these natural cracks. I think they're important and they enhance the beauty of the actual crystal. That's where I sit. But it's important to know if you buy a crystal that's got a crack in it, as this one has, it's going to be a little bit more fragile. It's going to be more susceptible to breaking if it knocks up against a harder crystal or if you drop it. Now, the other thing too, when we look at the image on the left with the obelisk, that certainly does appear to have the colouring. My information is that most real Unakite is not treated or dyed because it's so abundant. Okay, they don't need to be passing off fake Unakite to be able to earn any money. But if you are in doubt, if you don't have access to a reputable seller, and that could be when you're buying online, the information that I got is there's some tips that you can take to establish if your Unakite is real, and that is you could attempt to scratch it with your keys or a knife and it won't scratch, okay? So that's the good news. If it does scratch, you've obviously got a fake piece. But the other thing too is if you are going to do the scratch test, don't do it with a masonry drill bit, diamonds or topaz, because they actually are harder. They've got a a higher MOS score. Is it pronounced MOS or MOS? Mineral hardness score anyway. So they will actually scratch Unakite. So you wouldn't do that if you thought you had the real McCoy. The other tips are it's never going to have bubbles in it, and it will always have this pinkish brownish component to it. And as I said before, if it doesn't have these pinkish brownish aspects, you're looking at epidote. Now, the other big tip about identifying the fake from the fraud is any crystal that's got air bubbles in it usually. I'm doing a disclaimer there because I've actually seen, say, crystal points that have got air bubbles in them. That's a whole different story. But let's say you were looking at Unakite and you could see air bubbles, then you're looking at a product that's made from glass. You might even need to actually get one of those jeweler's loupes to have a look to check those bubbles out. That crack that I'm talking about is referred to as an inclusion. Perfect imperfections, I like to say, and they are really good indicators that you've got the genuine article. Maybe that's why I like it a lot. The other thing is not only will it always have a little bit of black, it will also always have a little bit of white, okay? And obviously you've got to look a little bit closer at these images to see the little bits of white because it's not a lot of it. Now, this is an interesting tidbit that I'm going to continue to use because I've found it more recently on one of the geo websites. And apparently quite often a lot of these dodgy sellers, they will actually dye or colour a rock and try and sell it off as the real McCoy. So there's a couple of other things that you can do, which is you can, say, put a cotton bud into an acetone nail polish remover and then stroke the actual rock with the tip of the bud with the acetone on it. And if any colour comes off on that bud, you know you've got a fake. It's been painted because crystals actually don't bleed. Another tip from the geos is that if you were to hold Unakite, it's always going to be cold to the touch and it takes a little while to heat up in your hand. So it's heat resistant. They do say, though, that if you do manage to find some of the fake Unakite, it's usually made up of clay and it will dissolve when it's immersed in water, right? So left there for a while. Real Unakite doesn't dissolve when you put it in water. So that's another way to test the real from the fake. Now, of course, the other buying tips, which I've got the buying tips video, but is basically when you do your purchasing, if you're buying online, definitely ask for photographs of the item from all angles so you can actually see any of these inclusions and flaws. Definitely ask for size. Like with the obelisk, you would be saying how tall, how wide. And what's the other one? tall, you want to know how high it is, you want to know how fat it is. And anyway, you want side angles and that kind of stuff. If you're getting a circular one, you want to have a circumference and the height. You want to have a bit of an idea of what it is you're actually buying. And another tip is ask for the weight. You want to know what the weight is. And especially if you're buying online, you want to find out what those freight charges are before they send it off, because this is actually one of the areas where they really do scam. They'll turn around and say, oh, we've got cheap product. And actually, this is a good tip to know for if you're buying on a platform where you see a crystal and you think, goodness me, that's cheap as chips. You know, we've got this here and it's normally $50 for a tumble stone wherever else you look. And all of a sudden you find it on a website and it's going for $5 and you think, I'm going to snap that up. It looks genuine to me. Rule of thumb is if it's that cheap, it probably isn't. But then as you go through the checkout, you see that the freight charges are actually $70 on top of your $5. So it makes for a very expensive crystal. So always check those things out. So let's look at the metaphysical benefits. And obviously, let's start with the spiritual. You can see here that, oh my goodness, it's massive. It's got so many healing properties. It's a very deep, allegedly a very deep healer. It promotes this inner reflection. And when we do the reflection, we start to become aware and recognize any limiting thoughts, any behaviors that keep us locked into patterns, you know, especially when we're doing repeat patterns. And in the process, what it does is it identifies these things that are less than love towards ourselves or to other people, and we can hand that over. We can actually send healing or request for healing to be sent to those areas. This is where the terminology comes in, those areas of ourselves that are in darkness, that lay in darkness. What we're doing, we're going to lighten those areas up. We're going to put vibration into it, and we're going to release those, basically, which are harmful behaviors. And in the process, what happens from there is we start to develop the crown chakra, the wisdom. You know, I mean, Unakite is not actually directly related to the crown chakra. We're going to look at that in a little while. But there's a process that's involved, okay? So we release those things. We start to expand our crown chakra. We start to incorporate knowledge into our life, and that becomes the wisdom. And one of the biggest lessons is that patience, all things happen at the divine time in the divine way. So we also, in this process of growth and development and aspiring to enlightenment, we start to open up to the psychic gifts. And in particular, in this instance, we're talking about clairvoyance, the psychic vision, and scrying. If you don't know what scrying is, scrying actually can be done in a multiple way. I just realized I could do a video on that on itself. But technically speaking, if we're talking about crystals, my understanding is that there are some people that can hold one of those crystal spheres, and where some people think that if there's a few cracks through it, that it's broken, those are actually scrying planes. And the really gifted people can actually hold these crystals, and then they see the video of their mind, if you like. They see scenes playing out on these platforms within the crystals. I mean, the bigger the crystal, the better, really, for those sort of things. Anyway, back to this. When we talk about the environment, it's a very good crystal to have for ornamental purposes. You know, that's if people around you aren't into crystals or metaphysical energy, you can just go, well, it looks pretty and I've put it in the environment. I've got an ornament there. So it's very good to be put in the workplace or the family. It encourages what we call right moral behaviour. We don't really want to say right, because right and wrong sounds judgmental. So upright is probably a better description. Upright moral behaviour with integrity and where we are our authentic selves, as I croak on. You could put it on the side of your computer if you want. If you're a musician, you could actually put it in your room where you practice your music. What else have I? Let me check my notes here. And there's a lot of them. Okay, I'll try and brush through them. Okay. One of the important things about releasing that which isn't love is things like anxiety. And I believe actually that Unakite will work very, very well on this. Anxiety actually destroys ambitions. It discourages you. It helps a person basically to give up, and they fall into this stage of powerlessness. So Unakite helps to protect and keep you on your path, if you like. It's also, this is one of the reasons I love it, is if you've had a fall, you know what I mean? If life has knocked you on your backside, then it's time to get some Unakite or to carry it on you, wear it on your person, because it encourages your resilience and being able to get up and keep on keeping on during dark times or dark days. It helps a person to feel more self-assured as well. They're more confident in the decisions that they make. And not only that, when we talk about anxiety, this is where people worry about the future and their head goes scooting off and they panic about tomorrow. Well, Unakite helps to keep you present in the present moment. And so if you're experiencing some real blows to your ego, if you like, and you don't want to step outside the house or whatever. In fact, the first thing I think of is those people that have had to deal with workplace bullying, mobbing. All right, they tend to become a bit reclusive. Unakite might be very supportive and important for you to wear as you try and recover from whatever injuries you've had to live through. It's also, if you're a therapist and a psychologist, you might want to keep it in your healing rooms as part of benefiting your clients, helping them to overcome the psychological barriers. What else have we got? Basically, it instills... Oh, I'll save that for the emotional slide. Let's just say it can be a protector as well, and it does restore and build on hope, and it is said to be beneficial for healing relationships. And it would be silly of me not to mention this bit about gardens and ask you if you've tried this, because it's supposed to promote plant growth and flowering. And if your plants are suffering from plant disease, apparently put a bit of that around and it will help them out. So I do know of some people that own vineyards that work with crystals, but I don't know that they use Unakite. But I definitely would be interested in hearing from people that have put Unakite in their garden. Now, when it comes to the physical attributes of Unakite, as far as healing physical health, as I always say, look, you use crystals as a complement to any treatments that your doctor's got you on. And there seems to be a large lot, many claims here about how a crystal, well, all of them actually, how they actually impact on the physical health and well-being. And some of them actually do look, I'll put my hand up and say they do look a little bit outlandish. So you can go through all of these. You can see here that it's got a number of healing properties, or attributes is probably the best way to explain it. I'm just looking at this because there is something particularly I want to talk about on the physical health side. And it's because I get a little annoyed by some people with the claims that they make, or where they sound like an authority on the subject. And it's like, well, actually, I've done my research on that one, and I beg to differ, I think is probably the best way to describe it. So anyway, Unakite is very popular among healers because of all these attributes. They like to use it. I'm just looking, you can see here on the list, but I'm just trying to read my notes to see if there's other stuff I haven't put on there, because there is so much stuff. Okay, it's said to help with addiction, okay, and addictive behaviours. Probably works more with the mental side of addiction, but it is believed to have detoxification qualities as well. So if somebody is going through withdrawals, maybe they might benefit from having it. If you've got a severe disease, though, or an enduring one, and that could be chronic fatigue even, the idea is that Unakite helps to facilitate the recovery and bring you back to a space of good physical health. And of course, we've got on here the immune system. It helps to process mineral and vitamins absorption. I'm jumping ahead of myself and stumbling over my words. Anyway, the point being that when it facilitates recovery, the idea is through this space of inner reflection, we identify what is the root cause or the emotional cause of an illness that we're actually trying to live through. Now, this is the bit that I wanted to address in this just very quickly, because not that long ago, I was listening to somebody talking about how a thyroid condition, for example, is something that is a consequence of some kind of childhood trauma around 6 years old. Look, I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying that we can't say that that is what causes it unless it's our illness. And the reason why I say this is because I have a thyroid condition. You know, to be honest, put my hand up. I did have some trauma actually when I was young. But the bottom line is that it's actually an inherited condition. I have what's called Hashimoto's. And this is an autoimmune condition that we are born with. It's in our DNA. I think it is a case of something triggers it. And scientifically and evidentially, it's actually getting pregnant and having a child. It doesn't happen to everybody. But my sister also, she was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, I believe, when she was pregnant with the second child. I got diagnosed with Hashimoto's after having my second child as well. Not all the children in my family have got Hashimoto's, and my own children don't have it, okay? But they do all have some form of autoimmune condition, okay? So this is why I say, look, we can't just assume that because somebody has got an ailment that X, Y, and Z must have happened to that person. I would be more inclined to think that in my situation, in my family scenario, that it's something that we agreed to have as part of our plan, because it definitely does create fatigue and it has other side effects associated with it. And what was I going to say about that? But you can manage it to a certain level would be where I go. Oh, I know what I was going to say. And the other thing with autoimmune disorders, what I learned more recently, and this, if you've got an autoimmune condition, I find this fascinating. Apparently, what they've found in the DNA of people with autoimmune conditions is that there are likenesses. They've linked it to the DNA of those people that died from the Black Plague. So where I'm going with this is that actually autoimmune conditions, basically the scientific evidence that we had ancestors that died of the plague, all those hundreds of years ago. We're the survivors, actually. We might have autoimmune disorders right now today, but we are actually survivors. And probably if the Black Plague came out again today, we would probably survive it because we potentially, I'm speculating here, may have immunity to it. The reason I say that, and of course, just want to say this is all my thoughts, right? When I was a child, I contracted, because we didn't have measles, mumps, rubella vaccinations back then, but I got all of them. I don't remember getting the mumps. I got chicken pox, I got the measles, all of this stuff. When I was going to university, I had to go and make sure my vaccinations were up to date if I wanted to go and do a hospital placement. And I really didn't want to, because I thought, what's the point of getting a vaccination when I have a natural immunity to things like the measles, But of course, they said you need to go and get it tested. You need to get blood tests done to not have to do these tests. So I went in and I got the blood test done to see what my antibody levels were. This is just, I might not be using the correct terminology here, right? But whatever it was, when it came back, because I've had the measles, my natural immunity was like about 400 times what somebody who was getting the measles vaccination would get. So I've got very, very high immunity, if you think about that, towards just your basic childhood disorders. And incidentally, my children have inherited that immunity as well, because that's how it works, I understand, I believe. Anyway, moving on, enough waffle there. Let's talk about the mental and emotional. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this particular slide, and this is because I've waffled so much on the other ones. What you can see is it does carry benefits for the mind, the way we think, opening up that mind, removing the blocks, improving the attitude, leading to greater emotional harmony, that inner harmony. But what I like about it, I think it deserves a special reference, is self-value, to be able to recognize your own gifts, your own beauty, and of your soul. If you can look in the mirror and say, oh my gosh, I'm stunning, even better. But anyway, if you've got anxiety and mood disorders, this is where it also comes into its own. But what I will say is, because I'm not talking about this in any great in depth, the more anguished a person is, the more suffering they are experiencing at the time. It could be mourning, grief, loss, all of that stuff, that horrible space. A lot of people that have PTSD, for example, they're recovering from having gone through this experience of extreme suffering, shall we say, where they're locked in looking backwards or looking forwards. So sorry if you've got PTSD and I'm offending you there. That's not my intention. The point I'm trying to make is there's a depth of feeling and emotion associated with these experiences. And so therefore, whether the person has really deep anxiety or OCD or whatever, that they can just flip out, it's recommended for those people. And I was just thinking, who else? There was somebody there, it came into my mind and then it just went out. If you're talking about OCD or even things like schizophrenia, trauma, hallucinations, anything that is really deeply embedded with this emotional torment, you would recommend Unakite to these people. But then on the other side, the upside of it all is you don't have to be having torment to be able to get the benefits from Unakite as well. It's not like, oh, well, I don't have a psychiatric diagnosis, so I can't use Unakite. It's not going to help me. It will help you, and it will help you still at a very deep level. It's just that those people that have got really deep suffering, theoretically, I say, because we don't want to be making claims, allegedly, it's going to help alleviate that suffering. Now, my attitude to this is, can I make claims about this? No, not at all. What I can say is, my belief is, if you don't know, you won't know unless you give it a go, right? So if somebody has all of this suffering going on for them, I would consider buying them a piece of Unakite and then just seeing how that worked for them. There is actually another crystal, if they were in the depths of that kind of suffering, I would probably give them opalite, okay, and Unakite, because I've actually observed people with significant psychiatric disorders getting healing from, and I'm talking the synthetic opalite, I'm not even talking about the genuine. And what I find interesting is they will actually, if you've got them in the shop, they will actually gravitate towards opalite. I haven't seen them gravitate towards the Unakite, but that doesn't mean to say that they didn't. I just never saw it. But if you know anybody, once again, leave your own comments. I'm starting to wish I hadn't put so many notes in here, but it's actually important, I think, that I'm going to read the notes, okay? And the reason why I say I'm starting to wish I hadn't written so many is because it is so hot here today. It's very, very humid. And I feel like I need to get up and walk away from the computer just to sort of get some air circulating around myself. But anyway, I'll get on with this. When Unakite starts the healing process, it starts at what we call the base chakra or the root chakra. This is the little red one you can see here. Now, this is believed to be the access point to Mother Nature. I don't know so much about that, but I'd say it's pretty close, okay, because we've got the Earth star that sits about a foot beneath a person's feet, okay? You've got your Earth star chakra, but either way, I can see the relevance of this. When we're activating that red base chakra, okay, that's the base survival need. So we work with that. This is what Unakite is going to do. It's going to work, well, I should say allegedly, work with the red chakra. And if this is blocked is because people are going to be hasty and judgmental because they're trying to make sense of their emotions. And, this is when people do a lot of blaming other people for things that have happened to them. They're not able to understand why they feel so angry or hurt or upset. And then it just becomes this reactive space of turning around and going, well, it's them, they did it, they made me X and Y. But the other thing is too that then they have to, as they process the thoughts, right, and the feelings, they can be very, I suppose, impulsive because they're dissatisfied. They get bored easily. They feel powerless. They can even become rude or tyrannical, okay? So Unakite helps to open up to being more compassionate. And when we go through this process, so there's the calming and soothing of these emotions in the sacral chakra, feeling safe. It's okay to be passionate. And then we shift up to the trusting themselves. And then, of course, it starts to work on the heart chakra connection. So you're going base to the heart with Unakite, but it doesn't stop there. Okay, because when we're opening up the heart chakra, we're opening up to divine and unconditional love, and this actually means the loving and accepting of yourself. Whilst we start to do a change there where we're focusing on reaching our potential. We start to realize what we might be able to be, and not only that, we actually start to have greater empathy to those people around us because we start to realize this process of awareness, enlightenment. Everybody's on their own journey. Nobody is perfect in the image of our perfection. We're humans. We're works of art that are in development. And we're all doing the best we can. It's just we have different values, I should have, without going into this waffle, because I said I needed to keep this short. The other thing I should have mentioned when I was talking about the emotional benefits of Unakite is actually it's recommended for those people that are overcoming abuse, and that can be childhood abuse, childhood trauma. It can be through intimate partner, domestic violence, that kind of thing. Wherever abuse has occurred, people have to recover from that. They have to heal and forgive and feel safe to do so, okay? So this is where Unakite helps to strengthen a person, build resilience, overcome this distress, and to connect to their true power. So obviously when it comes to Unakite, I mostly find it as a tumble. So you can pop it under your pillow, you can hold it in meditation, you can wear it if you need to have that extra energetic boost, that comfort that it provides. You can keep it in your ornament. You can also have pendants like this. Keep it as an ornament, and you can meditate with it, okay? Because when you're in a meditative state, you focus that intent to actually connect to the healing energy of a crystal and the properties that it can bring to your life, and then you just breathe yourself into it. So you can definitely meditate with Unakite and hold it while you're meditating. As a messenger, I would say that this is a reminder. If you're drawn to Unakite, or if you were to fish it out of my crystal lucky dip, I would probably be saying to you, look, this is a reminder that you're safe to be who you are, and you are safe to be your true self, and to try or make a commitment to self to stay present in the current moment. Because if you find yourself worrying about the future, then remind yourself the future is about things that may or may not happen, right? And if these thoughts cause you stress and distress, that impacts negatively on your capacity to enjoy today, happiness today, because you're focusing about stuff that may never happen, that's in the future. Now, on the other hand, if you're got some form of trauma like PTSD, where you do reflection on the painful stuff of the past, okay, once again, you need to be able to pull yourself back to the present moment, because focusing on that past stuff keeps you locked in the past. So it's a case of catching yourself, recognizing when you're actually going down that pathway, and then consciously pulling yourself back to the present moment. Now, I've got a couple of tips here, okay, because when it comes to PTSD and this kind of trauma, it's very painful, it's difficult to find something to celebrate out of trauma. I mean, if it's somebody that you loved who's passed to the other side, I would be saying, look, encouraging you, try and focus on the good times instead of focusing on the death and the loss aspect, that they no longer have a body. Try and put your attention on the fact that you had them in your life, at least for a while, and what a blessing that was, and grateful for small blessings in life. Some people never know love. Some people don't have relationships where love is reciprocated or whatever. So it can be a case of just choosing to be grateful for small blessings. Now, the other part to that is, of course, if your trauma is focused on really painful stuff that was outside of your control, such as childhood trauma, in those situations, I would be suggesting, right, and I believe this is the guidance of the crystals, obviously, that in those situations, you can't see the blessing, all right, especially when it's involving nasty stuff, shall we say, irresponsible parents. So instead of trying to understand, right, just remember it all becomes clear at the divine time why a person goes through these things. Instead of trying to force an understanding and comprehension in the current moment, instead you're going to gasp at this one, I guarantee you, but I'm going to recommend it anyway. try to be grateful for the experience. I can hear you gasp. The way we go around this is I choose to be grateful for blessings seen and unseen, because there is going to be an experience within that whole horror story, if you like, that through the passage of time and as we raise our vibration of self-love and acceptance, that we realize that, hey, I like who I am and I'm proud of who I am and I survived despite the odds and all the rest of it, or I've got a quality of character that I wouldn't have if I didn't have those experiences, and, sure, the bottom line is you wouldn't wish them on anybody if they were really, really horrible. But as you grow to love yourself, you grow to embrace all aspects, I guess, of what has shaped yourself on the physical path. And that road to forgiveness also is one where you accept that your parents obviously were products of their own limitation. That's a big leap, okay? I expect a lot of people are going to probably be triggered by that, and I apologize in advance. Maybe we'll do a conversation about that at some point in time. But the bottom line is, whether you've got anxiety or whether you've got PTSD, we've got to bring our thought processes back to the future and somehow, back to the present moment, and somehow find peace within that. And I'm just giving you some tips and strategies to try out. And I'm not saying they definitely will work. I'm just saying if things aren't working for you now, there is that old saying about, well, what have you got to lose? Give it a try, give it a go, see what happens. And don't forget, when you're doing healing, especially deep level healing, when you invoke the highest vibrationary beings, the celestial beings, it happens pretty darn quick, okay? So as discussed, Unakite is a relatively hardy crystal. So, you can be fairly comfortable that if you're wearing bracelets and pendants and that kind of thing, that it's going to be okay. But at the same time, in my experience, even if it's a hardy type crystal like Unakite, if you drop it enough times, it's going to break. If you bang your bracelets enough times, then a bead or two may break as well. So whenever I'm doing manual type activities, I will actually take my jewelry off, especially if it's bracelets. But you should be able to use it under the shower if you were going to wear it under the shower. But I think it's a good rule of thumb to just take your jewelry off and your pendants when you're having a shower or when you're washing dishes. Now, the other point too is any crystal that is set in silver or gold or whatever, and where you wear it against your body, it doesn't matter if you're the cleanest person in the world. Obviously, you usually get a bit of grime or blackness going on under there, in which case you could probably immerse it. I tend to use, if it's set, if I've got a set crystal, and this would apply for Unakite as well, just a mild soapy water, tepid, a gentle cleanser, a gentle dishwashing detergent, shall we say. And then I will actually, because if it's not too hot, you can soak it and swirl it around in the cup gently, and then put a toothbrush to it if you need to, a soft toothbrush, to wipe away any of the grime, and then give it a rinse and a polish. You might need to do it a couple of times to get it clean, and it should be fine. But if you know different, let me know if you've had a different experience. But then, of course, once you've done that, if you're into the metaphysics, you want to be able to cleanse and charge it, ready for the next job, if you like to call it that, for its next work. Ornaments, of course, is going to be pretty straightforward. You can just wipe the dust off with a damp cloth, and if you're energizing ornaments, like I have a tower here, not of Unakite, but of another crystal, but I've got it sitting on a selenite disc as part of keeping it purified and clear at all times. And you could do the same with Unakite if you've got ornaments. Otherwise, if it's tumbles that you're working with, just, if you've got selenite, use selenite. It just makes life so much easier. But of course, you can do things like exposure to sunlight, moonlight, using your sage or incense, burning your Palo Santo, if that's how you do it. Other people might use Reiki energy. You might use music. It's whatever you feel drawn to do. Interestingly enough, this doesn't relate specifically to Unakite, but I've actually put a crystal outside, where I don't promote putting crystals out in direct sunlight here in Australia, certainly on a really hot day like we get here. Today it's a bit overcast, there's a bit of cloud cover, And I've got a crystal that hasn't seen the light of day for quite a while, shall we say, and it's one that needs to be regularly cleared. This is part of me doing my cleansing. So while I don't normally cleanse and charge it outdoors, sometimes I will put it out for a while. And currently I actually feel drawn to putting it out in a full moon, actually, as well as the sunlight, to really give it that extra boost, even though I'm using the selenite. Actually, that's a story. That's one of my upcoming videos. It's schist. I've got some schist, tourmaline and schist, and that requires a little bit more effort than most other crystals, but I'll save that for that video. But, Unakite would certainly benefit as well. It's not going to suffer as far as I know, but your experiences are always important. There is absolutely nothing like recording a slide and realising after the fact that you didn't press the record button. So starting over, okay, what I was saying that you didn't get to hear is I would like to thank you for being part of my journey today. I'm going to call it a day because it's a really long video. I was thanking the universe that Toby was so good today, and I was also reiterating the fact of my concerns, and I thought I should have addressed this in the cleansing and care of Unakite. So hopefully you're still watching this video or listening to it. I am suspecting in hindsight, I probably should have said, if you've got a lot of the intense emotional trauma going on around you, you would want to cleanse and charge Unakite on a daily basis. And if you've got the selenite, best way to work with it, just pop it on the selenite when you perhaps go to bed at night, if you've been wearing a pendant. If you sleep on it with it under your pillow, in the morning when you get up, just get it, pop it on the plate, ready for the next night, because it really is digging down deep with the emotions. But for now, though, my friends, I'm going to say thank you again. Thank you very much. I'm going to love you, leave you, catch you on the next video. Bye-bye for now.